Ancient Greece, the birthplace of philosophy, theater, and disgusting practices such as somewhat weird pregnancy tests. Well, you see, pregnancy tests aren't something new. They existed even in ancient times. However, the way the ancient Greeks checked if a woman was pregnant was quite unusual. They placed a garlic bulb in the woman's intimate area overnight. If the woman wasn't pregnant, her breath would smell like onions the next morning. For this to happen, there should be no obstruction to her so-called tomb, because in the absence of a child, the scent would travel to her lips. Interestingly, a more accurate method might have been suggested by the renowned physician Hippocrates. He believed that giving a pregnant woman diluted honey with water before bedtime could yield reliable results. If she woke up with cramps and bloating, the test would indicate pregnancy. In ancient times, the Greeks had various methods to improve men's sexual performance, some of which provided ongoing stimulation. A commonly used and effective combination involved using pepper and honey. The man would apply this mixture to his intimate area to achieve the desired effect. While the ancient Greeks admired strong and manly bodies in men, they had a contrasting preference when it came to male phallus. The Greek statues we see in museums today often depict men with small and flaccid phalluses. This was because in their culture, a larger, thick and erect phallus was associated with foolishness and a lack of self-control, while a small and flaccid one symbolized restraint and intelligence. In fact, when actors in ancient Greece took the stage to portray foolish characters, they would wear comically oversized fake phalluses as part of their costumes. Ancient Greek medicine revolved around the belief that the human body consisted of various fluids. A competent doctor was expected to recognize these fluids, their appearances, and even their tastes. In those times, if you felt unwell, a doctor might examine your vomit and even taste it for diagnostic purposes. Similarly, for a headache, you could anticipate a thorough ear examination, including the doctor tasting your earwax. In a routine checkup, a conscientious doctor like Hippocrates might request a urine sample, fairly normal so far, but would then proceed to drink it in front of you. According to him, the urine of a healthy person should taste like fig juice, and any deviation indicated illness. In addition to analyzing bodily fluids, patients were often directed to visit a nearby temple, as illnesses were considered divine punishments that required appeasement. Predictably, the treatments were as unpleasant as the ancient diagnostic methods. Doctors commonly prescribed bloodletting to rid the body of bad blood, a practice that persisted until the 19th century. Other remedies included a concoction of mule excrement and wine for women's troubles, and women who experienced a miscarriage were coated in cow dung to prevent a recurrence of misfortune. While these ancient practices may seem repugnant, some historical accounts mention people living beyond the age of 100 during that time. Perhaps, despite their unorthodox methods, Hippocrates and his contemporaries possessed insights that we may underestimate. One of the rather peculiar and clearly mistaken beliefs of ancient Greece was the idea that the sweat of athletes had magical properties. Athletes were like famous stars in those times, and people held them in high regard. One of the more unusual expressions of this admiration was the belief that the sweat of athletes could work as a kind of cure-all. It was thought to be able to relieve all sorts of pains and aches. To collect this special sweat, athletes would exercise without clothes, coated in olive oil. In ancient Greece, all athletes competed completely naked, and the olive oil helped trap their sweat. After their workouts, the athletes would have this sweat-soaked olive oil scraped off their bodies. This substance was called gloios, and it became quite popular and valuable, fetching high prices, even up to 80,000 sesterces by Roman times. Ancient Greeks were very focused on perfecting their bodies and were quite obsessed with their physical appearance. While exercising, men would strip down, apply oil to their bodies, and work out in the nude. The word gymnasium itself comes from the Greek term gymnasium, meaning a place for naked exercise. Gymnasiums held a special place in ancient Greek society, and every significant city had to have at least one. It was common for people to watch the naked men exercising in these facilities. They were open for public observation and were seen as a reflection of a person's character. Once they finished their workouts, the men would use a semicircular tool called a strigil to scrape off the oil and dead skin from their bodies. These scrapings were highly prized and sold to the public as elixirs. A man's beard represented his status. The men competed to see who was the most hygienic, so having a decent barber was invaluable. In fact, the ancient Greeks considered beards to be a sign of knowledge and masculinity. The cowards were punished by the Spartans and had some of their hair shaved off. They valued the human body's hair as its most precious resource. That's because they believed it gave the dead energy to travel to the underworld. However, the ancient Greeks did not consider hair loss to be a problem. On the contrary, it showed her intelligence. This is why most of the thinkers' sculptures are bald. If you visit Greece today, you will encounter the overwhelming majority of Greek men with beards. This shows that some things from older cultures are still part of the norm. However, when it came to women, the norm was somewhat different. For them, the ideal body was hairless and smooth all over, and they spent a lot of time and effort trying to achieve this. Without the luxury of modern waxing or lady razors, the ancient Greeks had a straightforward way of achieving their beauty standards, plucking individual hairs one by one, a painful and time-consuming process. For a quicker solution, some even resorted to burning off all their body hair. Failing to meet these standards meant facing social disapproval since, according to the customs of the time, only uncivilized women were allowed body hair. Being perceived as uncivilized was something a Greek would want to avoid at all costs. Long before toothbrushes, toothpaste, mouthwash, or dental floss were invented, the Greeks had to get creative to keep their teeth clean and healthy. Some methods worked well, while others were not so great. In ancient Athens, they had ways of dental care that might interest us today. But some are definitely gross and best forgotten. It's widely known that rinsing the mouth with urine was a common practice in ancient times. Health-conscious individuals believed that the ammonia in urine not only disinfected the mouth but also kept teeth white. The Romans, however, took this to another level by importing human urine from Portugal, creating such a big market that Emperor Nero imposed a tax on these imports. Aside from the unusual mouthwashes, surviving records reveal other inventive ways ancient Greeks used to maintain dental hygiene. The most popular method was using twigs as toothpicks, a routine performed after every meal. Occasionally, people would floss using horsehair before rinsing and gargling with human urine. These primitive methods weren't always effective, but the Greeks valued endurance, considering a trip to the dentist for tooth extraction as a last resort. Despite finding some of their methods amusing, the ancient Greeks and Romans often had better oral hygiene than many in the modern world. Their diet had minimal sugar, and there was no processed food, resulting in rare cavities. However, chewing unprocessed food extensively led to worn-down teeth, leaving an elderly person only with a few stumps where molars should be.